Hey guys, welcome to a new video. So today we're going to be talking about Lightroom's somewhat new feature where you can blur the background with just a simple click. So it's a preset. You can find it under Adaptive in the Develop module. But before we get into Lightroom, I'm going to show you what I think it does in Photoshop. So I'm going to open the same image first in Photoshop, try to apply a background blur, then move on to Lightroom, show you the same process, compare the two, and then in the end we're going to be talking about whether or not AI is already there or if we still need a fast glass to blur the background efficiently. Okay, so we're here in Photoshop and I'm going to show you how I would blur the background in Photoshop because I think Lightroom does pretty much the same thing. Okay, so select the subject first, okay, and then obviously if you want to be 100% perfect, you would look into areas where Photoshop did not do a good job and you would manually correct them. Okay, so in this case this would also be part of the background, obviously. And then if we look closely here, it did a really bad job here in the hand. So you can be as picky and perfect as you want. I'm just going really fast just to prove a point that Photoshop is not perfect. Okay, so if we move down, you can see the ball. So it confuses the ball with the grass. Do you see that? Hopefully you can see that in the video, because that's very important, right? That's one thing your lens would not confuse because it's physical, it's not software, right? It's an actual physical lens, so it would either be in focus or out of focus depending on the aperture that you would have selected, the depth of field that is. So, okay, David, pay attention. In this case it's shift because I'm adding, but you get the idea. You would perfect the area that you want to be out of focus, and then I can either copy and paste so I have the layer saved, or I can just go on the background and blur it. So now I select the background, okay, and I go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and then obviously, you know, don't make it like fake looking. Add a little, like this is 0, and then you start seeing the changes as you make it stronger and stronger. But then you can also see the effects that it has on the player. It looks like it almost doesn't belong there. But this is roughly what I think Lightroom will do. Okay, now let's switch to Lightroom and check the exact same image and see how it applies that effect. Okay, let's go to Lightroom. Same image would be, where is it? It's this one. Okay, now if you scroll down on the Develop module here, Adaptive, Blur Background, and now just pick whichever one you want. There's a few options, so I'm gonna pick Strong. Did it do anything yet? No, it didn't. It takes time, especially when you have an old computer like mine. It takes a bit of time. So I'll be back as soon as this is done because it's gonna take some time. Okay, and now it is done. And pretty good job with the ball. The hand, it failed here. Do you see that? It failed here on the hand, and here below the chin it failed as well. But overall, for the amount of effort I had, pretty good, I would say. Okay, now we're going for this one in Photoshop, which I think will be a bit harder because there's a lot more subjects, so to speak, in the frame, even though they're in different shades of out of focus, if you know what I mean. So let's try and see what Photoshop will do. Select subject. Okay, so that's not too bad. It selected this one, that one, and it missed a few areas here. For example, yeah, it did terribly here. So I would have to select these areas And I'm doing this really fast just to make this video as short as possible. Now this section here as well. And here. And finally there. Okay, now with the selection, I'm just gonna copy the layer. I'm gonna go to the background, filter, blur, Gaussian blur. You see the problem here? That's a massive problem because it thinks this subject is on the same plane of focus as the one with the ball, which is not true, right? It's more out of focus because it's quite far behind. So Photoshop fails quite a bit. So our options here would be to remove the player in the left from the selection, or just not go crazy at all with the blur. Something a little bit lighter that you wouldn't notice too much. Now let's see what Lightroom does with the exact same picture. Let's go for strong once again. Okay, so this is what Lightroom did. And if you notice, it did not blur out this section either. Like this one, you can't tell that it didn't do it, but it's very evident here and here it didn't apply the effect. So it did pretty much what Photoshop did, slightly better job. So that's at 100, and here's the original image. So if we increase this to 100, very evident that Lightroom did not blur out this section. So it left it untouched, so it did have some issues detecting the subject as well. So long story short, buying a lens, you know, doing it actually in camera is obviously still miles better than doing it via software. But you know, there's always here the option to do it. If you can't afford fast lens, fast glass, you can always use software to compensate a little bit. So obviously we're not there yet. AI can help, yes. If you're on a budget, you can use these new tools either in Lightroom or in Photoshop to blur the background, but obviously nothing beats fast glass. So if you want to blur the background efficiently, just, I guess, get a better lens because it'll do a much better job. But obviously if you're on a budget, then yes, you can always use Lightroom or Photoshop to get the same effect. But one very important thing people sometimes forget is choose your background. So what's behind your subject is very important. So try to pick a background that does not distract the viewer from the subject, if at all possible. You will notice that in some stadiums, sitting on a corner or sitting on a different one can make a big difference on what's behind your subject. That's it for today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. Till next time, take it easy, guys. Stay safe. Ai, anda cá, aqui, aqui. Linda menina. Linda menina. Vamos embora, ok?